Some disclaimers before we begin. One, there may be some background noise, and two, this is being recorded live, so expect some mistakes. Chapter 16. Watched. Joe. It was clear by the time we got home that it was going to take a lot more than dinner to get back on Aunt Trudy's good side. "You'd better go in and talk to your father," she huffed as she got out of the car and slammed the door. They were the first words she'd spoken since Frank had told her about his miracle recovery. I looked up at my brother, and we both sighed. What a long, miserable night. Upsetting our beloved Aunt Trudy was just the icing on the cake. But there was still more to come. We had to talk to Dad. We went into the house and slowly approached his study, then knocked quietly. "Dad," I called. "Come in," he replied in a gruff voice. I looked at my brother. "Here goes," I whispered and pushed the door open. "Dad," Frank said before he even crossed the threshold, "we can explain." "Can you?" I started standing up and walking around the desk. "Can you? Really?" Without another word, he brushed by us and out of the study. We had no choice but to follow him down the hallway, through the foyer, and to the front door, which he opened. "There," he said, stepping out and pointing up over the doorway. I had a sickening realization before I looked. It couldn't be. But of course it was. It only made sense. There, stenciled above our front door, was the red arrow. "Dad," I managed, but no more words would come. He looked hard at me, then Frank. "Let's go back to my study." We followed him back through the door, the foyer, the hall, to his study. He closed the door behind us, and Frank and I dropped exhaustedly into the chairs facing his desk. Dad picked up a mug of probably cold coffee and took a swig. He still drinks it long after it's gone cold. Frank calls this gross. I call it hardcore. When he'd finished, he put the coffee cup down and sat down behind his desk, looking at both of us through hooded eyes. Dad looked as tired as I felt. "I thought," he said after a few uncomfortable moments, "we had an agreement." I took a deep breath. "We did, Dad," Frank said, sitting forward in his chair. "But look, Joe and I believe you taught us that if something wrong is happening in this town and people are getting hurt, then we should do everything within our power to fix it." Dad stared at him. "Really? Up until including putting your own family in jeopardy?" Frank shook his head. "We didn't mean to do that." "I thought I was very clear the last time we talked," Dad went on, his voice low. "Some things are better left alone, and you didn't leave this alone." Neither one of us answered. Our father eyeballed us for a moment more, then dropped his gaze to the desk. "It makes me wonder," he went on, "how much I can trust you two in general anymore. For example, keeping up the deal." He looked up at us. Frank and I didn't say anything. It was sort of an unspoken agreement between us that he, Dad, and I never mentioned the deal. Honestly, it hurt too much. I don't think any of us liked to be reminded of what we had lost in the deal, or at least lost the right to do openly. But at the same time, the deal was the only thing securing us a decent future. College and a job and a family and kids one day. Without the deal was the Jadoub School for Behavior Modification Therapy on Rock Island, which was not the kind of future anybody wanted. For a few minutes nobody spoke. Finally Dad leaned across his desk. "As I have told you," he said, "there are powerful forces at work here. I really don't think you boys know what you're getting into. If you care about me, if you care about your own future, please just leave well enough alone." "But, Dad," Frank said, "how do you know? Were you red-arrowed before?" Dad was quiet for a few seconds. "No," he said, "I was never that unlucky, but I've had clients who were." I looked at Frank. There was a question forming on my tongue, but I was almost afraid to ask it. Fortunately, my brother and I think alike, and he is sometimes braver than I am. "What happened to them?" he asked. But my father never got the chance to reply. He was cut off by a blood-curdling scream from upstairs. "Aunt Trudy!" Aunt Trudy stood in my room, my backpack dropped before her on the floor. "It's watching me," she whispered when the three of us appeared. It's watching." "What's going on?" My parents' bedroom door opened, and I stumbled on my mother, hair tousled, wearing her signature satin pajamas. She looked from Dad to me to Frank to Aunt Trudy. "Who was that screaming? What are you all doing up?" Dad turned to look from Mom to Aunt Trudy. "It was Trudy screaming," he said. "It's a long story. But, Trudy, who's watching? What do you mean?" Aunt Trudy backed out of my bedroom, pointing at a plastic robot on my bookshelf. I built it in the second grade. His name was Mike the Robot. But behind Mike the Robot, a red light blinked, and a lens pointed. "Watching. waiting. We're being videotaped, Aunt Trudy cried.